Today we're going to be talking about volume and how to find volume for three different shapes. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be a rectangular prism, and that's pretty much just a box. So what it is the two bases, the two ends are what we're going to call them. The bases right here, those are rectangles, and then it has four rectangles that create the box. If you're thinking about playing a game and you have if you have a pair of dice or something, a die would be considered a rectangular prism, a cube, okay? So, or like a Christmas gift or any kind of present that you would have in a box or anything like that, that is going to be a rectangular prism. So we're going to be talking about how to fill that up because that's what volume really is. What does it take to fill all of this up? A fish tank is a good example. How much water is it going to take for us to fill up a fish tank? Well, that's what volume is going to tell us. The next shape that we're going to talk about is another prism, but this one is triangular. And the reason we know it's triangular is because both of the bases, it has triangles on them instead of a rectangle. But then it still has rectangles, as you can see, connecting it all together. So we really could still fill this up. If this was a triangular cup, we could still fill it up with juice. We could still do things with it. But we need to measure how much does it take to fill something like this up. So there is a formula for that as well. And the last shape is going to be, again, it's rectangular, but it's not a prism because it comes to a point right here at the top. So this is actually a rectangular pyramid. And this looks very similar. I'm sure that we've all seen these before, especially talking about it in history with Egyptians and everything, but that's just a pyramid. Okay, so I'm going to give you the tools that you need to be able to find the volume for each one of these different shapes. It's just a formula. These are things that I like to call plug and chugs. And so as soon as you find the information you need, you plug them in and you chug right through the formula. And I think that you're going to do really good at this. So let's go through some examples after I give you the formulas so you know what's going on. So this first shape that we see right here on the screen, this is a rectangular prism. You notice that it says the length, the height, and the width. That we need all of that for our formula, so that's why it's labeled that way. Our formula to find the volume of a rectangular prism is the volume equals the base times the length times the height. All right, now notice that I put my L as a curly Q, as a cursive L. I personally just do that because when I just write a normal L, it looks like a 1 to me, and I don't want it to be confusing if it looks that way to you guys as well. So what you're going to do when you're solving for this is you're going to find your base, okay, which is right here. They actually call it the width right here, but our base is going to be here where that blue line is, okay? And then our length, we'll label it in green. It's going to be this measurement right here. And then our last one, our height, we'll do pink. That's going to be right here. Oops, I'm going to cover right over it. Okay, so that's going to be your measurements that you're going to need in order to find this. Now we know that when variables are right next to each other, that means that we're multiplying them. So you just plug in the number associated with each variable and you multiply it through, and make sure that when we're doing this, we're doing it in cubed units. So whether it says it's in inches or feet or centimeters or meters or miles, when you're trying to find, I guess miles it wouldn't be because that would be distance, but you're going to be finding it in the cubed because you're multiplying three things together, so we'll have an exponent of 3. All right, so our next example of the shape that we're going to be going through, remember this is called the rectangular prism. I'm sorry, nope, it's the triangular prism because it has the triangles right here on the ends, okay? So these triangles make sure that it's a triangular prism. Okay, now our formula for a triangular prism is a lot like our formula for our area of our triangles. If you guys recall, this past week you learned that the area equals 1/2 the base times height. Well, for a triangular prism, our volume is going to equal 1/2 of the base times length times height. Okay, we're only adding one more dimension to it, but we're still using that 1/2 just like that we did when we were finding the area. And I will just remember that the height is going to be the height of the triangle there on the end. It's the height of our total shape. So again, we'll just find those variables, what value is supposed to be in for each one of them that's given to us, and we'll plug them in and we'll just put it in our calculator. We can either multiply the base times length times height and then divide it all by 2, or you can do it as 1/2 of the base times length times height. Either way, you're going to get the same information. You'll have the same output. And then our last shape that we're talking about today is called our rectangular pyramid. And we know that because of this rectangular base down here. It says it right here for us. So we know, okay, there's a rectangular base. This is what we need to be talking about here. So the formula that we're going to need for this is actually the volume equals 1/3 the base times length times height. Now, this is something that we learned also when we were going through last unit when we were talking about Pythagorean's theorem and we did it with three-dimensional shapes. You have to remember that the height on these goes all the way from the top of the pyramid and it's going to stop right there in the middle of the base. And it's actually going to form a right triangle with the slant, okay, with right here. So we have to remember the height is the total height of the pyramid when we're talking about this. And then the base and the length, those are just the measurements right here of the base of the rectangular base. Now let's use those formulas that we just learned and let's go through some examples so that way we feel confident in what we know. So first thing we need to decide, what the heck kind of shape is this? Is this a rectangular prism, a triangular prism, or a rectangle pyramid? Well, we've got some hints here. We've got two triangles on the ends, so I'm going to say that this is going to be a triangular prism because our two bases are triangulars and we have our other side, our other shapes are there going to be rectangles. So this is going to be a triangular prism. So the first thing I like to do is I write down my formula. So volume of a triangular prism is going to equal 1/2 of the base times length times height. Okay, now I'm going to fill in all the variables that I can figure out. All right, so I need to know what base equals, I need to know what length equals, and I need to know what the height is. All right, so it looks to me that our base, we're going to label it in green, is right here at 5. All right, and then our length, that's going to be the longest side of our prism here, our length is 12. Now we have one measurement left that they've already given us, so I know that's going to be my height, but I can also tell because it's the height of my triangle. So right there, that's going to be my height. So what we're going to do is now that we see which one goes where, we're just going to plug them in. So my base was 5. My length was 12. And my height is 2. So I'm going to say that my volume equals 1/2 of 5 times 12 times 2. Now, if you like to do multiplication in your head, go for it. Otherwise, pull up a calculator. If you use the scientific calculator on Desmos, or you can use any calculator that you have, just make sure that when we do this 1/2 right here, that you use your parentheses. So you're going to do parentheses 1 divided by 2 for 1/2 times 5 times 12 times 2. And that's going to give us 60. So our answer to this, and since it's measured in inches, we can see that the volume is going to be 60 cubic inches, or inches cubed. Not too bad, right? Like I said, it's plug and chug. You find out what you need to plug into your formula and we chug right through it. So there is a triangular prism. Let's try a rectangular prism. Right? I know it's rectangular because it's a box. It's got rectangles right here on the bases, so we can see that that's what it is. All right, so let's write down our formula. It is the volume is going to equal our base times length times height. All right, so we're just going to highlight so we can match our colors. Our base on this one is going to be this blue, which we know is going to be right here, our 8. Our length is going to be the length of our prism, so that's 25. And we know that our height is going to be how tall it is. We'll do it in pink. It's going to be this 4 right here. All right, now that we have it all set up, that we know which one goes where, we're going to rewrite it. That way we don't get confused. And it's going to be 8 times 25 times 4. And then we're going to plug that into our calculator. Clear it from our last time. Move it up some. And we're going to do 8 times 25 times 4. That's going to give us 800. And it's measured in inches. We can see that right there. So our volume is going to equal 800 cubic inches, or inches to the third power is how we're going to write it. Okay, that's what this means. This 3 exponent right here means cubic inches. All right, last example. And we have some more problems we can try if we want to as well. Right here, what kind of shape is this? What do you think? I see triangles and I see rectangles, so it can be a little bit confusing, but it's nice to know that the last one that we have to do only has one base, and it's right here. This rectangular base right here, there's only one, and it comes to a point, so we know we're talking about a pyramid. So let's go ahead and write down our formula for our pyramid. It's the volume equals 1/3 times the base times length times height of our pyramid. And I do want us to remember that our height is this right here in the middle. It goes from the tippy top all the way down to the center of our base. So we know that's going to be the height. That's how tall we are. All right, so let's do some highlighting here. We'll try to keep it somewhat consistent. So our base, it can be any one of these actually. So our base, let's just say it's this 4 because it's shorter. Our length, we're still talking about this. So here's our length of it right here, 10. And then our last one is our height. Our height, and we just talked about that, is going to be the 6. It's how tall is this pyramid actually. So now we know what we need to plug in. So let's rewrite our formula so we don't get confused, okay? We know what we're inputting into our calculator. Volume equals 1/3 times the base, which is 4, times the length, which is 10, times the height, which is 6. All right, and then we know we're talking about centimeters here. So let's pull our calculator back up. Move it up here so we can see it. Clear it out from last time. Remember, when we're utilizing this fraction right here, you have to use your parentheses. Being able to input this into your calculator is what's going to make you very, very proficient in this. It's going to make you confident in what you're getting. If you don't use your parentheses, it doesn't work out. A lot of times the calculators, they can't read our minds, so we have to make sure we input the proper information in. So 1/3, we're going to do our parenthesis, 1 divided by 3. Okay, and we get that 0.33333333. We know that it's weird, but that is 1/3 times 4 times 10 times 6. And that gave us a nice happy round number of 80. All right, so let's come back over here. So our volume is going to equal 80 centimeters cubed. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we work on plugging and chugging in these formulas. This is how we find the volume of each of these 3 different shapes. Now, your homework for today just has a few of these for you to go through. I highly encourage you to write down your formula each and every time, okay? One, this is going to get this into your brain so we know what we're talking about. It starts helping with the memory. There's nothing wrong with highlighting and using different colors. I tell you, this is one of my favorite part of math when we get into geometry, because we do get to use colors. 1, because it helps us out, and 2, it makes us remember some of the information a little bit more clearly, in my opinion. So if you have any more questions, I do have some more examples that we can go over. I'll do that in another video, but I think you guys should be good to go. This is things that we've learned back in 6th and 7th grade. Just a good refresher, and if you have any questions, please email me, okay? I'll be checking in this week to make sure we're all doing great, and I'll post another video with more examples. Have a great day, guys.